Welcome back, everyone. This is another episode in Ancient History of Bharat. So, in the previous video, we have focused on the traditional history as mentioned by some of our native sources. One of those sources is Puranas, another one is Satpatha Brahmana. Now, these are all literary sources that were written as commentary upon the Samhitas, that we like to call it in the contemporary language as Vedas. Alright, so today again we'll focus on some other sources and some further, but largely in this chapter, chapter number, is it 13? Yes, let me just confirm. This is, no, chapter number 14 in the book, in this book. Okay. Chapter number 14, Traditional History from the Earliest Time to the Accession of Parikshit. Alright. Now this is chapter number 14 so far. One thing that I want to mention from the very beginning is there are clear-cut genealogies and chronologies given in the Puranas about who succeeded whom, who was whose father, who was whose mother, what were the matrimonial alliances between all these kingdoms, between the solar and the lunar dynasties. Largely in the Puranas, all the dynasties that have come out of the Bharata's tribe have been classified either into two, either the lunar dynasty or the solar dynasty. Solar dynasty is supposedly come out from Ayodhya. Okay. Now, lunar dynasties, Yadavas are the ones that those who they are the most prominent ones, and those are the ones who are frequently mentioned in the Puranas when it comes to the lunar dynasties. Okay. So we'll again start from page number 288. That is where we left off in our previous video. The Anava kingdom in the east was founded by Titiksu. Okay. Anga, Vanga, Kalinga, Pundra, and Suhma. All right. So these were the five sons. Okay, in the further line of the Titiksu, and these are the ones who set up their kingdoms in the east. Okay. Now there are also some geographical indications regarding where exactly were these kingdoms situated. And the names are: Anga comprised the modern districts of Bhagalpur and Munger. Okay, Bhagalpur and Munger are located in the current day Bihar. So Anga was located in those regions. Vanga was further east, corresponding to the modern Dhaka and Chittagong divisions. Okay, so can you comprehend this fact that these places have been mentioned in the Puranas like 5,000, 4,000 years ago, and to this very day we have come to believe that all those lands, they belong to the Muslims. Okay, today we have a country, although they have not they have formed that country on the basis of the language, that is Bangla, and Bangla in turn receives its name from Vanga, and Vanga as a kingdom has been mentioned in it was one of the splinters from the Yadavas and Yadav dynasty. All right. So and today we are expected to believe that Bangladesh is Islamic Republic of Bangladesh. So you see, in a matter of just a few centuries, what proselytization does to your nationhood. Like I have mentioned in many of my previous videos, proselytization will puncture your nationhood, and when that puncture is wide enough, they will start demanding a separate nation altogether. That is what was done in 1947 on the pretext of two-nation theory. Okay, and it is pretty much a lived reality post 47 onwards. Inside the vivified Bharat and outside the vivified Bharat, in the daughter states of Bharat as well, that are Pakistan and Bangladesh. Today we see, the numbers of minorities in these countries have dwindled. Okay, so two-nation theory is a reality, no matter how the secular and wokeful idiots might deny it. Okay, it is very well indeed a reality. But coming back to the topic of the video. The further R.C. Majumdar writes in these chapters, the Puranas further show that the rivalry between Vishwamitra and Vashishta is not only endless but hereditary. Okay, so the two great priests, two great Brahmanas at that time, one was Vishwamitra, another one was Vashishta. Okay, now there was a continued and perpetual rivalry between these two priestly class. Now keep in mind, these are not names of a single individual. All those people who took birth in the respective clans, either Vishwamitra or either Vashishta, they adopted this title again and again, over and over again. That is why you will see that since the ancient times, okay, names were rather, I would say, names would take a back seat. It was the genealogy and the culture and the name that you carried. So you'll see that kings have these names of 1, 2, 3, 4, and all that way. Name would there would only be one name, and such is the case with Vishwamitra and Vashishta. Okay, those two might have been individual, individual and pretty much erudite and highly intellectual rishis. Nobody is denying that fact, but all across the Puranas, whenever we mention Vishwamitra or Vashishta, it's not one specific individual, it's a genealogy of that specific individual, and all the further generations have adopted that name. Okay, they might have a different real name altogether. All right. It appears that the Puranas combine the various accounts of different Vishwamitras and roll them into one. For instance, Vishwamitra, the father of Shakuntala, Vishwamitra, the contemporary of Rama, Vishwamitra, the contemporary of Harishchandra, Jamadagni, Sunasepa of the Sudas, okay, and the Dasrajana were quite different personalities. Like I have mentioned, R.C. Majumdar also mentions that on page number 289, that yes, indeed, these were separate individuals just adopting the same name. Okay. All right. Moving ahead, in that same chapter, R.C. Majumdar focuses on the solar dynasty. So whenever we speak of solar dynasty, it is pretty much mandatory to speak of Ayodhya. Okay. Satyavrata Trisanku is the subject of numerous fantastic tales in the Puranas, being expelled by his father at the instance of his family priest on account of some excesses. Okay, the solar dynasty itself, the Surya Vansh, that is supposed to have been started from Ayodhya. Okay, now the earliest king that we know is, let me see, reigns of Mandhatri, Purukutsa, and Trasadasyu. So, like I said, the Puranas, they don't just start off randomly from any one king. They give, like, it is beyond the scope of this video to cover each and every king, but Puranas, they mention, a perfect chronology in which these kings were born. Okay, so in that kings, one of those kings is Trisanku. Okay, Satyavrata Trisanku is the subject of numerous fantastic tales in the Puranas, being expelled by his father at the instance of a family priest on account of some of the excesses. Okay, now this person Trisanku was expelled, was banished to go and live the life of exile. He was excommunicated from his own kingdom by his father. Why? Because the priest of that kingdom, okay, guided him to do so. Maybe due to some or the other reason. We don't know. R.C. Majumdar has not mentioned it in his book. But that does not mean that the Puranas does not talk about that. But yes, it's not mentioned in this book. While in the forest, Trisanku supported the family of Vishwamitra, which was starving when Vishwamitra, after renouncing the kingdom, had gone to the forest to perform penance. Vishwamitra learnt of the generosity of the prince after his return, and in gratitude, as also in order to defeat his antagonist Vashishta, got Trisanku installed on the Ayodhya throne. Okay, so you can see the competition still is going on between Vishwamitra and Vashishta. Okay, meaning, so this fellow Trisanku, since he was excommunicated and had to go to the forest, he went to the forest and he met the family of Vishwamitra. And they were starving. Why? Because Vishwamitra himself had gone to the forest, deeper inside the forest, for some penance. Okay, so he helped this family, he helped in recuperation of his family who were already starving. And when Vishwamitra returned, he realized that, oh, this crown prince has been very generous to my family. Let me help him as well. So, Vishwamitra, when he returns, in his after his realization of the generosity and benevolence of the crown prince, he helps him to ascend to the throne of Ayodhya. Okay, now who was the priest who had earlier recommended to the Trisanku's father to send him to exile? That priest was Vashishta. So this is the reason why Vishwamitra helps Trisanku to ascend to the throne of Ayodhya, simply because it was Vashishta who was the priest over there. So there was still some rivalry going on amongst the priests as well. Okay. Now there is another king that has been mentioned. Okay. Sagara had to pass through Madhya Desa and central Bharat to lead an expedition against the Hayyas. After destroying them, Sagara led his conquering hordes against their hardy outlandish allies, the Sakas, Yavanas, and Kambojas. Okay, here Puranas mentions some foreigners, meaning these people, we cannot assume them having organic origin in Bharat, because the Puranas themselves mention that the Sakas, Yavanas, and Kambojas were foreigners. He would have completely crushed them, but for the intercession of his priest Vashisht, with whom they sought refuge. Sagara then led them off after imposing on them certain signs of symbolical defeat and disgrace. Okay, Sagara again, he had to go through, but Sagara was operating under the guidance of the priest, that is Vashisht. Okay. Now he conquered all of them, these foreigners, Sakas, Yavanas, and Kambojas. But the priest Vashisht, he recommended that since these were foreigners, we cannot treat them harshly. Okay, so you cannot completely annihilate and destroy them. But Sagar, as a king, he was hell bent on extracting some sort of some sort of signs of defeat. Like there has to be some sort of a sign that they were defeated by so and so king. So what did he do? The Sakas were made to shave only half their heads, Kambojas to have their heads completely shaved. Paradas were forbidden to shave or trim the hair of their heads, and Pahlavas to shave their beards, thus rendering them unfit for Vedic ceremonials. Okay. Now you might have come across these ideas and notions of whenever in the rural areas, when the people want to publicly shame and humiliate someone, what they would do is they would half shave their head or half shave their beard. So where does this idea come from? This idea comes from here. Okay. So this King Sagar, since they were foreigners, he did not completely annihilate and kill them. He did all these things to symbolically humiliate them and feel some, sense of victory over them. And hence, when they were subjected to such practices, now they could not participate in the Aryan ceremonials. Okay. The story seeks to interpret in the manner of the Puranas the peculiar customs of these peoples who were becoming Kshatriyas under the priestly guidance of the Vashishtas. Okay, the Puranas themselves mention, so far the Puranas, they do not mention of a Varna that has Kshatriyas. Okay, but under the guidance of Vashishta, okay, they were becoming Kshatriyas. Sagara's name is connected with the ocean Sagara in a fantastic legend which states that the ocean became Sagara's son. Next up are the Brigus. Okay, Brigus or Bhargavas practically dominated the whole epoch. The Richika, Jamadagni, Parshuram, and Agni Urva were the prominent Bhargavas. Okay, these are the names, but in a sense they belong to the Brigu clan. Okay, Brigu was a very well learned priest, way before all these lineages started. Okay. Devraj Vashishta was a priest of the Ayodhya kings during the reigns of Trayaruna and Satyavrata. His descendant officiated for the foreign Sakas and the Yavanas. Okay. With the wars of the Parshuram and Sagara described above, the Krita Yuga, according to the Puranas, came to the end. Okay, after the conclusion of the war, in our previous videos, we had learnt about these wars between Parshuram and the tribes of the Brigus. They were situated in what we today like to call as the Western Ghats, or largely the Konkan coast. Now, the Brigus, they were pretty much rich due to the geography of their kingdom. Since they were situated on the coastal areas, they were pretty much affluent due to the foreign trade that they have, which itself should be a testimony to the fact that they indeed were traders. And how did they trade? They practiced their trade on the seas, and hence, since they practiced their trade on the seas, it is safe to assume that they were well versed in the art of navigation. Okay, so this is, we are talking about 5,000 years ago. The art of navigation was known to the Brigus. Okay, but on the hinterland, in the Madhya Desa that we like to call it today, the Hehayas ruled. Okay, they, in a way, they were a splinter from Yadavas. Okay, now these people, they were pretty much envious of the fact that the Brigus were very rich. Okay, given the fact that the Brigus had flourished due to the grants that were given by the forefathers of the Hehayas. Okay, so they demanded it back, they waged wars, but Parshuram, he pushed back a little and defeated the Hehayas. And in the future, there were also other kings who managed to bring the Hehayas to the top again. But yes, all these wars, they came to an end, and it signifies the ends of the Krita Yuga. According to the Puranas, when these wars, they reached an end. And after the Krita Yuga starts the Ramachandra period, the most glorious period of the Aryan rule or the Aryanhood of Bharat. Okay. On page number 292, R.C. Majumdar, he mentions the dates on which the Ramachandra period begins, and the date is 2350 BC. Okay. 2350 BC. Now, how do we interpret these dates? Okay, what is the current date? 2024. Okay, let's rewind the clocks back to 2024 years. So we'll reach a point when it was 0. Again, from 0, again rewind the clocks back to 2350 years, and that was the point when the Ramachandra period begins. Okay. R.C. Majumdar states, Bhagiratha is included in the list of 16 famous kings and is celebrated as a Chakravartin and a Samrat, and also one who gained fame by his gifts of cattle. He was a devotee of Shiva. He is reputed to have brought down the sacred river Ganges from the heavens through the power of his penance. Okay. Now, you must have heard this phrase in Hindi and maybe in Gujarati and other vernaculars of Bharat as well. Bhagirath Prayas. It is used as a metaphor to indicate when somebody is doing some hard work. Okay. Now, where did that metaphor originate from? Okay, Bhagirath, he was a king. He was a king in the Solar dynasty of Ayodhya. It is mentioned in the Puranas. I am not making this up. This is not a fictional story. Okay. So, Bhagirath, he was a king in the Solar dynasty of Ayodhya, and he has done some extravagant penance, meaning the severity of his penance was so intense that the great Lord Shiva himself was pleased with it, and he allowed Bhagirath to bring river Ganga to the earth. And hence we use this metaphor of Bhagirath Prayas in Gujarati, Hindi, and all the other vernaculars all across Bharat. Okay. Yep. So next up is Katavanga. He was also another king. He was a great Samrat and Chakravartin. Keep in mind, I am ignoring certain because R.C. Majumdar has been very generous when it comes to including the genealogies and the chronology of the kings that is already mentioned in the Puranas. So it would make no sense for me to include the entire genealogies. If you are very much interested into learning the exact names and genealogies, it is mentioned in this book. Okay, but right now, for the purpose of this video, we'll only focus on the important bits. All right, but yes, rest assured, you will not miss out anything that is importance, anything that is of utmost importance. I've made sure of that. Okay, Katavanga was another king. He was a great Samrat and a Chakravartin. Is said to have helped the gods in their fight against the Asuras. He was a great devotee of Vishnu and had a son named Raghu. So Khatavanga was another king from the Solar dynasty of Ayodhya. He also adopted the title of Chakravartin or Samrat. He had a son who was named Raghu. Okay, and Khatavanga himself was a great devotee of Vishnu. The Ikshvaku dynasty came to be called Raghuvamsha on the account of this celebrated Raghu. Okay, so far in this series of ancient history of Bharat, we have mentioned that there was an Ikshvaku dynasty that was stationed in Ayodhya. Okay, under that dynasty there was a king who goes by the name of Khatavanga. Khatavanga was a great devotee of Vishnu. He had a son who goes by the name of Raghu. Raghu was such a celebrated king that from his life forwards, the lineage that he started came to be known as Raghuvamsha or Raghuvansh. Okay. The ideal monarch, he was the ideal king. So from this point forwards, any king who aspires to be a monarch has to prove himself on the scales that were set by this king that goes by the name of Raghu. Okay. First king of Ayodhya, Raghu was succeeded by his son Aja, the consort of Vidarbha and Princess Indumati, to whom was born Dashrath. Okay, so you see, all these things have been meticulously mentioned in the Puranas. It's not like out of the blue, King Rama takes birth. Okay, so Raghu is succeeded by his son Aja. Okay, Aja is married to Indumati. Now, Aja and Indumati had a son who goes by the name of Dashrath. Dashrath was a valiant and all-conquering monarch who led victorious campaigns throughout the length and breadth of North India and spread the Aryan culture far and wide. Why exactly is Dashrath spreading Aryan culture? Because Aryan culture is organic and native to Bharat, and hence he is spreading that culture. Okay, now why is this important? Because the motivating factor, the driving force behind Dashrath's aspirations to conquer new frontiers was the spread of Aryan culture, was not the ambition of him being a king or him being a successful king. What he wanted to do was spread of the Aryan culture far and wide. That is what Dashrath did. Okay. Now let's see what else Puranas mention about Dashrath. I'll again repeat the premise on which we are functioning. If you assume that the entirety of this is absolute fiction, okay, then you and me are not in agreement. But if you are willing to concede that there is some degree of truth to this, then I am also agreeing to meet you halfway and ready to concede that yes, there is some degree of exaggeration here as well. But it works both ways. It cannot work unilaterally for us to always concede that all of our history is fiction and all the foreign history is absolute truth. Okay. All right. Now, Puranas also mention these things have been written down and mentioned. Okay. Dashrath married Kaikeyi on the stipulation that the son born of her was to succeed him. Now, Dashrath, he was told by somebody that if you marry Kaikeyi, then the son born out of Kaikeyi and that union would be the successor of your state. Okay. He had a daughter, Santa, whom he gave in adoption to the Anga king, Lomapada. Being without an heir for a long time, Dashratha performed Putrakameshti. Okay, there was a Aryan ritual that goes by the name of Putrakameshti. So if you are not having sons, this is a ritual that you're supposed to perform on the advice of Vashishta. Again comes in Vashishta. So this cannot be a single individual functioning all this while. Okay, Vashishta was a lineage. Okay, there might have been an individual who went by the name Vashishta, agreed, but the following lineage, all the successive heirs would have adopted the title. All right. Vashishta, under the guidance of the rishis, who was married to Santa. As a result, 4 sons were born to Dashrath. Okay, there were four sons that were born to Dashrath, and those four sons were Rama to Kaushalya, Bharat to Kaikeyi, Lakshman and Shatrughna to Sumitra. Okay, it's not completely fictional and legends. It is very well mentioned that Rama was born to Kaushalya, Bharat to Kaikeyi, and Lakshmana and Shatrughna to Sumitra. So these were all the wives of Dashrath. Rama and Lakshman obtained instruction in science of archery from Vishwamitra. So it was the priestly lineage of Vishwamitra that acquainted Rama and Lakshman with the science of archery. Okay, and they helped him in the performance of sacrifice by vanquishing the horde of the Rakshasas that disturbed him. Okay, so in a way, we can also, look at it this way. Vishwamitra taught the science of archery to Rama and Lakshmana, and in return, Rama and Lakshmana fought a war with the Rakshasas who were bothering the Vishwamitras. It is written in here. This is not me making it up, or this is not R.C. Majumdar making it up. All these things have been meticulously mentioned in the Puranas. Then Vishwamitra took the princess to the Mithilia. Mithilia was a town where Rama fulfilled the conditions and was married to Sita. Okay, it was Vishwamitra who took Rama and Lakshman to Mithilia, this is where he performs whatever that was necessary of him to marry Sita, and in the end, he was married off to Sita. It is later on when Dashrath proposed to install Rama as crown prince that the main story of Rama as recorded in Ramayana may be said to begin. Okay, Ramayana in itself did not start simply because Rama was sent to exile. Okay, there are multiple reasons why the story plot takes the shape the way it takes. Okay, and this is the background behind it. Okay, Rama and Lakshman, they learn archery from Vishwamitra, then in turn to repay the debt to Vishwamitra, fight the Rakshasas who were bothering Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra takes them to Mithila where he marries Sita, and after marriage, Dashrath, he puts forward this idea that now it is Rama who has to sit on the throne. Okay, and that is where the epic of Ramayana begins. The story of Rama is particularly important as it brings the southern Bharat into the view for the first time. Okay, now why exactly is the story of Rama important? Agreed, there are multiple reasons as to why this story is very much important, but another reason is it brings to the limelight the Dakshina Desha, the southern part of this holy land, that is Bharat. Okay, why? Because for his exile, he moves towards the forests of, Dandakaranya. That in the current day would be Chhattisgarh. Okay. On page number 294, his stepmother Kaikeyi secured Dashratha the banishment of Rama along with Sita and Lakshmana to Dandaka forest for 14 years. Dandaka in those days was a great impenetrable forest, save for a few patches here and there occupied by Aryan adventurers. Okay, so clearly there were Aryans who resided in the Dandaka forest. And it was a pretty thick forest. All the adventurers and the people who aspired to, do all those things in their leisure time. For the lack of a better word, hikers, people who like to explore. Those were the people, Aryan people, who stayed in the Dandaka forest. I would like to place one parallel fact over here. Okay, the red corridor as we know it today, like the tribal people, not the red corridor, the tribal people, they are concentrated in Chhattisgarh. But the earlier we were said that these tribal people, okay, according to the Aryan migration theory, these tribal people are the inferior dasas who already stayed, and it was Aryans who came from outside and colonized this. So how exactly did the Aryan populate the Dandaka forests? That is something for you to think about. Do your own due diligence, and if you find the answers, come back to this video and comment. All right. Yes. Thereafter, he went south to the middle of the Godavari in the province called Janasthana, which was the colony of the Rakshasas. Okay. while in his exile and excommunication, in his days of excommunication, after passing on the Dandakaranya forest, he goes further south, okay, and he comes to a place that goes by the name of Janasthan. Janasthan was a colony of the Rakshasas, that is the, I would say, different people, because we don't exactly know how to define the Rakshasas. When I say the word Rakshasas, obviously the image of a devil might come inside your head, but that is what colonization and all these, toxic Marxist literature and all this toxic Marxist education might have done to you. But but yes, we do not have enough vocabulary to define who exactly were the Rakshasas. Okay, but yes, Janasthana, just south of the Dandakaranya forest, was a colony of the Rakshasas. And guess what? Who was the worshipped god over there? Yes, Ravana. Ravana was the god who was worshipped uh, in the colony of Janasthan, which Rama reached while moving south of Dandakaranya forest. Okay. Who had intercourse, thereafter he went south to the middle of the Godavari in the province called Janasthana, which was the colony of the Rakshasas, who had intercourse with their kingdom in Ceylon. The Rakshasas ill-treated the Munis and the sages, and Rama espoused the latter's cause and killed a number of Rakshasas. So the people in this Janasthana, the Rakshasas, they bothered the sages, the rishis, okay, and hence it was Ram and it was his, dharmic duty to protect the rishis and the sages and the learned and educated people. He waged a war with them, defeated them, and in process killed a few of them. Okay, now this gave a pretext to Ravana to seek revenge. Okay, it is usually believed that Ravana out of the blue abducted Sita. No, there has to be some or the other reason behind it, and this was used as a pretext. Okay, it was. Now let me clarify something over here. Ravana did not kill the Rakshasas out of spite. He was simply just executing his duty, things that were expected out of him. Okay. In revenge, Ravana, the Rakshasa king, carried away Sita to Ceylon. Okay. Simply because Ravana had waged war against the Rakshasas of the Janasthana, Ravana, he used this as a pretext and abducted Sita. Okay. Came to Lake Pampa and Rishyamukha Parvata, where he made friends. Okay. Now, since Sita was abducted, after using pretext of Rama's attack on Janasthana, Ravana abducted her. So Rama proceeded south in the quest of Sita. Now again he further went south. Okay. So we are getting more and more closer to the place Ceylon that currently we like to call as Sri Lanka. Okay. And when he went further south, he met Sugriv. Sugriv, he was the king of the Vanaras, meaning the chimps. Okay, I'm sorry if this word is pretty offensive to the devotees of Hanuman, and I'm a big believer in the spirit of Hanuman. But yes, Sugriv, he was the king of the chimps. Okay, who was expelled by his brother Valin. Okay, now the Sugriva, he was the king of the Vanaras. Now that fellow was expelled by his brother Valin. Now Rama, he waged the war on Valin and won over the Vanaras to his side. Okay, now again, there is this false narrative out there that the Vanaras decided on their own to support Rama. No, it was not out of the blue that they decided to support Ram. Rama fought a war on their behalf, installed their beloved king Sugriva on the throne of the king of Vanaras, and hence they supported him. Okay. Rama killed the villain and reinstated Sugriva on the throne, hence he won over the Vanar army to his side. Okay. So keep in mind, it was only in the later stages of his quest to recover Sita from Ravan that the Vanaras joined his force. Up until now, he was not in the company of the Vanaras. Okay. And next, everybody knows the stories. With the help of the Vanaras, he goes on to Ceylon. Okay, he defeats Ravana with the help of the Vanaras. One very interesting fact that you could note over here, if indeed Rama was, I would say, of a lesser character as the left and all the liberal scholarship makes him out to be. So now that he had defeated Ravana, he had an extended kingdom of Ceylon all to himself. What would he have done if he was an ambitious king and of a lesser character? He would have made himself the king of Ceylon, but no. What does he do? He restores Bibhishan, okay, Ravana's brother. He restores him and comes back to Ayodhya. Okay, this is the righteousness when we talk about King Ram. Okay, so he placed Bibhishan, younger brother of Ravana, on the throne of Ceylon and returned to Ayodhya. The story of Ram, okay, clearly indicates that he was a great king who spread Aryan ideas and institutions. So even Rama, the son of Dashrath, even he was spreading Aryan culture. Okay. Now further on, there are other mentions in this book about who were the sons, what happened to the sons of Ram, and what so on and so forth. Okay, but that is again beyond the scope of this video. If we get time, we will definitely cover it in the further chapters. But yes, there is also some history given about Mithilia. Okay, how exactly Sita came about, the way she was, and what happened. Okay. So next up is again the lunar dynasty. This was again the solar dynasty, that the epicenter of solar dynasty was Ayodhya. But now let's talk about the lunar dynasty, the Pauravas. Okay. Dushyanta. Okay, again there are further names and genealogies given in the Puranas prior to Dushyanta, but that is again beyond the scope of this video. So we will strictly limit this video to the important bits. Okay, rest assured you'll not miss the things that are important. Okay, so Dushyanta was one of the kings. Dushyant marries Vishwamitra's daughter, that is Shakuntala, and the union of Dushyant and Shakuntala gives birth to Bharat. Okay, and that prince Bharat came to be celebrated all across this land of Bharat, and it is said that this holy land gains the name Bharat from this particular individual that was born out of the union of Dushyant and Shakuntala. Okay, it is mentioned. I'm not making this up. Alright, let's read further what R.C. Majumdar writes. The Paurava dynasty came to be called Bharatas after the time of Bharata. It was probably during Bharata's regime that the headquarters of the state were shifted from Pratisthana to the city later called Hastinapur after his successor Hastin. According to some accounts, Bharata gave his name to our country, which was henceforth called Bharatvarsh. Okay. So here again, you come to two crossroads. Do you believe the scholarship of the West that will always tell you that all this is a work of absolute fiction? Or you believe the native scholars who have extended this courtesy of willing to acknowledge that there is some degree of exaggeration here, as long as others agree or concede that there is also some degree of truth over here? So which way are you going to choose? That is entirely up to you. Okay. So there are other kingdoms and other names of the kings have been mentioned as well. Okay. So this was the Ramachandra period. Next up comes the Krishna period. Okay. The date that Puranas give, and also R.C. Majumdar has mentioned the date in this book as well. The date that he mentions is 1950 BC. Now, how do you identify 1915 BC? Again, the same exercise. The current year we are in is 2024. Okay. Rewind the clock back 2024 years to reach a point where there is 0. From that 0, again, rewind the clocks back to 1950 years and you'll reach the period where Krishna lived. Okay, it has been mentioned in the Puranas. So with the coronation of Ram as the king of Ayodhya, after the destruction of Rakshasas, began the Dwapar age, which ended with Bharat war. Okay, so after defeating Ravan, Rama was installed as a king of Ayodhya. Okay, now he ruled, not he and his his lineage and all the other kings. Okay, now natural history takes its course. Okay, there have been kings and conquerors who have furthered the boundaries of Bharat, okay, more than Rama could have done. Okay, but our scriptures and our literary evidences mention Rama. Why? Because that individual was of exceptional character. Okay, no doubt there have been kings and conquerors that this holy land has produced, that has pushed the boundaries of this land far beyond what King Rama could accomplish. But the reason why we remember him because of his exceptional and immaculate character that he had. Okay, so yes, natural history will take its course after defeating Ravan. Uh, During the Dwapar age, Rama was installed on the throne of Ayodhya, but natural history will take its course. There were other kings and kingdoms, there were wars, there were struggles. So all these, thrones, kings, they kept on replacing itself. All right. So now there are multiple lineages, but here we are talking about another tribe or another rulers who go by the name of Panchalas. Okay. So Drupada succeeded his father Prishata in North Panchala. Drona, a fellow student whom Drupada had insulted, defeated the latter with aid of the young Pandu and Kuru princes who were his disciples. Out of the both North and the South Panchalas, which he thus conquered, Drona kept the North Panchala for himself and gave South Panchala to Drupada. Okay, so Drona was ruling the Drona was ruling in the North Panchala, and Drupada, he was ruling in the Southern Panchala. Now there are lineages and everything is given in the Puranas, but for the agenda of this video, we'll start this discussion about the Krishna period from Drupada and Drona. Okay. So Drupada performed penance in order to get a son who would avenge his defeat by Drona and kill him, and Drishtadrumya was born as a result. The Panchalas played a very important part in the age of Bharat war. The Pandavas married Draupadi, the Panchala princess, daughter of Drupada, and the Panchalas were the staunch supporters of Pandavas. All this is written. Okay. The Pauravas, I'm not saying Kauravas, I'm saying P, Pauravas. Okay. The Panchala king Sudasa overthrew Samvarna, the Paurava king. The latter fled to Sindh and then recovered his kingdom through Vashishta's help. So still, this lineage of Vashishta and Vishwamitra, they are still the guiding force of the polity of Bharat, or the Aryan abode of Bharat, the Aryan abode in Bharat. Samvarna had a son who goes by the name of Kuru, Kuru. Okay. Kuru is said to have sacrificed at Prayaga, which indicates that he extended his sway up to that place after subduing the intervening South Panchala territory. Kuru Kshetra or Kuru Jangala, the cultivated and uncultivated portions respectively. Okay. So Kuru was amongst one of the kings of the Panchala tribe. Okay. And it is from his name that we know the names of the place Kuru Kshetra or Kuru Jangala. Okay. Kuru was celebrated for his righteous rule. Okay, the Kuru was a ruler. Again, like I said, there have been multiple kings and conquerors that this holy land has produced. Okay, but the only ones that we remember are the ones that have had exceptional character. Okay. Kuru was also one of the kings. He was very well celebrated. He was a righteous ruler, a fierce warrior. He had expanded his kingdom and all. Okay. So Kuru was celebrated for his righteous rule, and Kurukshetra was regarded as a religious place. He was so much esteemed that his successors were called Kurus and Kauravas after him. It is after him that the Kaurava lineage started. Okay, he was not the enemy of the Pandavas. He was not the enemy of the Dharma. Okay, he was simply the progenitor of the lineage of the Kauravas. He himself was a righteous ruler. Okay. Again, natural history will take its course. There were other kings, other tribes who aspired to make a name for them, just like Rama did. So they fought. They fought battles. They tried to expand the kingdoms. Okay, so there were some kingdoms who will, who will go down. There were some kingdoms who will rise to prominence. Okay, so eventually the lineage of the Kurus and the Kauravas, they came to a standstill. Okay, there was nobody to revive their fortunes after the namesake Kuru. Okay, there was no ruler in this line to revive the Kaurava fortunes until the time of Pratipa, who was a famous ruler. Pratipa had three sons, Devapi, Bahilka and Santanu. Pratipa was a ruler in the Kaurava lineage. He had three sons. Okay, the second, Bahlika, resigned in favor of Santanu, who succeeded Pratipa. Pratipa had three sons. Three sons were Devapi, Bahlika, and Santanu. Okay, Santanu becomes the king. Santanu married Ganga. Santanu gets married to a queen who goes by the name of Ganga. And guess what? Who is birthed out of this union of Santanu and Ganga? Yes, Bhishma. Okay, Bhishma should be a role model for all of you men out there, for all of you young adults out there. If you are struggling to find a clear role model, it should be Bhishma. Okay, study about him, do your own due diligence on Bhishma, and you'll know why exactly I'm telling you to consider him as your role model. Okay, now Bhishma was born of them. Bhishma, whose original name was Devavrat, vowed to remain celibate all his life, renounced his life to the throne in favor of his younger brothers in order to enable his father to marry Satyavati. Again, Bhishma, he took a vow to be celibate all across his life. Now here people will say that if he remained celibate, why do you want us, to consider him as a role model? There is a phase in your life where you're supposed to make the most use of your bodily capabilities. Okay, and it is during that phase I am asking you to consider Bhishma as your role model. All right, but yes, he himself did not sit on the throne for long enough, because he knew that since he has taken this vow of celibacy, eternal celibacy, he would not be able to give a successor to the throne. And again, he relinquishes the throne for his father to marry another queen and give a successor. Okay, so again, let's see what else. Now Dhritarashtra, the elder, being born blind, again. So again, there is so much background, but again, we'll again focus on the most important ones. So Santanu, again, the father of Bhishma, who again comes back to throne, he again comes back with two sons, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. Those are the two sons that were born to him. Chitrangada was obviously killed, so Vichitravirya succeeded. Now there were two sons that were born to Vichitravirya, and the names of those two sons were Dhritarashtra and Pandu. Okay, Dhritarashtra the elder being born blind, Pandu was crowned king of Hastinapur, while the veteran Bhishma looked after the affairs of the state. Okay, now since Santanu had given birth, the wife of Santanu had given birth to two sons. One of them was Dhritarashtra and the one was Pandu. Dhritarashtra, he was born blind, hence Pandu had to succeed to the throne. Okay, so he was the now since Pandu he was given the throne, Bhishma was looking over the affairs of the state. Dhritarashtra married Gandhari and had by her 100 sons, chief of whom were Duryodhana and Dushashan. Pandu again married Kunti, okay, and Madri, and you all know the story after this. Okay, what happens? It was Dhritarashtra that started the lineage of the Kauravas, and it was Pandu who started the lineage of the Pandavas. Okay. Yep. All of this, obviously, if you'll have to know these things. These have been pretty much mentioned all across our books as well. But yes, so this is what is mentioned in the Puranas in the form of the chronology and the genealogies of the kings. All right, that's all for this part of the ancient history of Bharat. I will see you guys in the next videos. Thank you for watching.